you catch them because they say something. They say something that is truthful oftentimes, and it blows up their story. So they got caught. I mean, they admitted the truth.
Well, hello there, my friends, and welcome back to SilverFest 2, where I am broadcasting live from Sayulita, Mexico, which I might add, the reason that I ended up here was at the recommendation of Jorge from Reina Silver, which got started as an offshoot of Mag Silver by the great Dr. Peter McGaw. So I woke up a couple months ago thinking I might be sitting on X marks the spot, which is why we'll be doing Arcadia in silver industry spring break here this coming spring in Sayulita, Mexico, which we'll talk more about. So this way, if this silver supply chain crumbles just like Joe Biden's administration well before then, well, we'll be right on top of the supply while the world and all those wacky tech companies like Apple are experiencing the shortage. And here to dig into what that actually might look like, and especially when the industrial users start grasping what, fortunately, Bill Holter and Andy Schectman in particular, for even decades in advance of that, have been explaining about how fragile this whole setup is. David Smith joining me as well. So that's what we're going to cover here this hour, and honored, not just glad, but honored to have three legends of the silver industry that I was learning from years before I had the chance to meet and now call all of you dear friends. So really a pleasure to have our all-star lineup here today. And Billy Holter, how is it going there in Texas, my friend? Great to see you again.
I'm well. Thanks for having me.
Well, great to have you here and looking forward to getting your insight. Andy Schectman, well, who already struck out the side in the first and the second in the How to Bust the Comex panel, which could be one of the reasons why, Andy, our YouTube show, we got shadow banned a couple months ago. I guess if you make Uncle Sam your bitch over the silver market, that's the kind of thing that will happen. So now that you've struck out the Jeffy brothers 3 times in the first, 3 times in the second, you're back ready for more. It looks like Ross Benham's stepping up here for some silver supply chain talk. How's it going, hombre?
That's good, brother. It's good, and it's great to be here with David and Bill, and looking forward to the conversation. Thanks for having me.
Billy Holtz, are you enjoying the somewhat scared look on David Smith's face as he's wondering, oh my God, what the heck did I just walk into here? David, how are you going, sir?
Well, real good. And I'm not too scared because I'm here with 2 of my ongoing mentors, Bill and Andy, and I continue to learn from them. And I'm an open vessel when it comes to learning more about how to deal with what we've got coming up.
Well, I'm excited to hear your thoughts on a lot of things. And before we get started, if I may share a touching moment, Grandpa Schectman, you're going to like this one. When I showed Uncle Bill the video I made promoting SilverFest, where I gave the Jeffy brothers and the entire bullion banking industry the due attention that they crave so much, it's kind of like that Karate Kid moment where he impressed Sensei, because we finish it. Yara, do you want to come here for this story and share your thoughts too? Just real quick. Bill is speechless, and I'm looking at him like, Bill, are you okay? Do you handle that over there? And he's just like, he said something like, you beat them on every level. And I've been like high-fiving myself since then.
Like major high fives.
So
It meant a lot.
So, Bill, I'm honored to be talking with you again today. And why don't you start off? In the midst of we're seeing supply chain issues in basically every industry, possibly just a coincidence that it started with semiconductors where silver heavily interrelated. Yet the media doesn't seem to want to shed attention on the possibility of a silver supply chain issue, which fortunately Andy Schectman, yourself, and David have picked up the slack in the alternative media. But with a lot of new people being very excited about, let's go Brandon's new presidency reign, for people who are new and have not heard yet what could be happening in the silver supply chain, can you paint the picture for folks who might be hearing about this for the first time?
Well, I think the best way to look at this is there's supply chain issues in all different industries. I mean, there's, no matter where you look, just the air conditioning industry. Try to order an air conditioner. I 3 months ago ordered extra well parts for our water well in case it breaks down. I mean, there's a supply chain problem and other things. It took me 6 weeks to get it, and my well guy called me a couple days ago asking me if I wanted to sell some of the parts. He said they're 30% higher than they were, and it's up to a 3-month wait now. The point I'm getting at is there's go to your grocery store. I mean, there are shelves that there's stuff not there. Why would gold and silver be the only assets on the planet that are not in shortage? And we know that there are so many different industrial, medicinal, technological uses for silver. I just think it's bogus reporting, bogus logic, if you will, to think that there's a shortage in computer chips and is not because of silver itself. I mean, I think it's a big mistake. People, go ahead.
Well, I was wondering, just I might suggest one possible explanation. I don't know if this is accurate, but as you can let me know if you can see my CNBC screen here. Is it possible that last night or recently Joe Biden, now with the help of the Brandon movement, maybe he just solved it with his printed money, $555 billion for clean energy. He's focusing on incentives, not punishments. Maybe Joe Biden is on it. Could we count on him?
Well, I mean, obviously, one of the aspects of clean energy is solar. And think about how much silver would be used. I mean, you're only talking about, at today's price, global production is only $16 billion worth of silver. And in today's world, $16 billion is not even a ham sandwich. The entire world's global production could be bought out by one company, one person, one family office. It's so small, it's ridiculous. And one other thing, somebody asked me this morning regarding supply and demand on silver. And he asked if there's enough silver. And I said, well, at current price, no. But at a higher price, there could be plenty of silver. Not more physical metal itself, but a higher price will bring, and it takes a long, long lead time, but a much, much higher price will bring more production.
David, can you comment on that? Obviously, you are a world-class expert in the mining stocks as well. And let's say that the tamp down silver price got pushed right back in Rusty's face, back up to $50, $100, just a fraction of what the inflation adjusted 1980 high, which was tamped down back then as well. Let's say we have $100 silver. We're going to get some mining companies turning some projects back on. But how long is it going to take to make a meaningful impact in that?
I think it's going to take longer than people think, as Bill implied. This EV push and going carbon neutral and all this sort of thing is building up a giant rogue wave just beyond the horizon that's already being pushing, in a way that we can't feel right now, these other waves that are coming in to break on the beach. And the amount of silver that's going to be required, some of these countries they say no internal combustion engine vehicles by 2030 or 2040 or even 2025. Where is that silver going to come from when it takes 3 to 5 times as much silver for a new EV car as it does for an ICE vehicle? That's not just going to materialize. And people are talking about all the copper that's going to be needed too, but it takes 15 to 20 years to put a copper discovery into production and several $billion. And that's where a lot of silver comes from. So I think that's going to be something that's not going to affect silver supply very much over the next, say, 5 years either. So there's all sorts of reasons to really be concerned. And then you see the industry itself acting a lot like uranium. Those who use uranium in power plants, they're sitting around like, what, me worry? And then Sprott comes along and Kazatomprom and starts coming up with buying a lot of physical uranium, and now they're scratching their head. So it's hard for me to believe that there aren't some forward-thinking individuals in the electronics area, or silver is used in just about everything, who don't see the wisdom of buying up some. And I think at some point, once this silver bull run gets underway, that will be an announcement, maybe by multiple users, that shocks the market even more and really drives it into hyperdrive once it's gotten underway. Because, you know, unexpected events tend to support a bull run.
Well, I appreciate that, David. And Andy, that touches on what you were saying earlier this morning in the How to Bust the Comex panel, when we're giving specific, really tangible steps that investors could take to add pressure on the Comex in case Rafi's one lot isn't too much for them to handle in delivery already as it is. Bill, we made the speculation that as levered as Wall Street is, the fact that Rafi Farber has been requesting delivery of one Comex contract, that could have hypothecated Jeff Curry and Jeff Christian's whole pile another 100 times over, as he so much humorously acknowledged back in 2010. God only knows what the number is now. But Andy, you spoke about some of the steps that you might see on the dealer side, perhaps the day before something was about to break, the week before something was about to break, similar to if you were at Bernie Madoff. I'll bet the people who are going to work there, they probably sense that guy being a nervous wreck. From the retail dealer perspective, what are signs you might be looking for, or that retail people are following this at home might want to keep their eyes open for?
Well, I mean, we were already seeing it. You're seeing, you know, the U.S. Mint being the model of inefficiency this entire year, going on allocation for gold buffaloes 2 weeks into the beginning of the year, not producing any silver eagles from April to July, despite them saying otherwise. None of us distributors received any silver eagles for 4 months. The premiums on them right now at, you know, north of $9 an ounce. The fact that the primary distributors are allocating only 5,000 ounces to each company right now at a time. The UK Royal Mint running out of silver blanks. The fact that junk silver, which used to be as plentiful as anything I've ever seen, is almost impossible to get. You're seeing exactly this happening right now if you look closely enough. And the biggest money in the world taking huge positions off of Comex. I mean, look, let's just start with one assumption, and that is that you can only manipulate a market in the direction that it is going. And that's why it's been very easy for the big banks to manipulate the price for a very long time. As I mentioned on that last show, 95% of all of our transactions are silver, literally 95% or higher. Everyone is buying silver. And when you look at an asset that is depleted in nature, that is priced in its relationship to gold almost 11 times under its value in terms of its geologic footprint right now at a 7-to-1 ratio, according to Keith Neumeyer. When you see an asset that is expanding massively, to David's point, in green energy, in digital, in solar, in electric vehicles, you see a drive towards all these new utilities. But what other asset class can you think of that is bracketed by massive demand on both sides? One end being a renaissance in monetary demand, the other end being an expansive, growing list of industrial demands against an asset that is depleted in nature, that is 10 times undervalued in its relationship to gold, that only 30% of all that global mine supply that we talk about comes from primary silver dealers. We were just talking about this just a minute ago in the last conversation I was having, where, look, you got all this mine supply, but because it's found in a form called epithermal, very close to the surface, the big deposits were found long ago. The primary silver miners are few and far between. You couldn't, if you didn't know what the asset was, and you knew all of these variables, expansive use cases in industry, huge monetary demand, half of its 1980 value, found where only 30% of what comes to market is from people specifically looking for it. The 70% are people like, oh, we found some silver, let's sell it. It's the greatest backdrop for any particular investment you could ever think of. And I think that, you're seeing it. And I think the people that are trying to hold the price back, who are massively accumulating it at the same time, realize that this is a game that ultimately ends with the price going massively higher. But if you look close and you see the positioning of this big money, the fundamentals behind it, how hard it is to get it on a retail level, it's happening. It's just the price hasn't manifested yet, but it will. And when it does, it'll happen in a way that catches everybody, but the people that have been listening to us off guard. And that I'm very certain of.
All right. And we have some questions coming in. Andy, the first one for you. What is the premium on junk silver looking like right now?
North of $6 or $7 an ounce over the price of silver, and getting really, really hard to get. In fact, there's only been one time in my career. In fact, I said never in my career, and Bill corrected me incorrectly. There was a brief period of time, I think in 2008 or 2010, I forget when it was, where this for a very short window, this type of phenomenon existed. But when you're paying north of $6 or $7 an ounce for junk silver, and you can buy a Philharmonic for $4 an ounce less, nearly, something's wrong. But that's emblematic of what you're talking about, in that, or what this whole conversation has been about today, in that there is no bull market like a metals bull market, and this industry sees nothing in the way of secondary selling. No one is selling to go back into fiat right now, and so if it's not brand new 2021, it's impossible to find. And that's why if the mints break or there's a problem in the supply chain, as this panel is about, it's over. You got 6 major mints in the world: UK, United States, Canada, Austria, Australia, South Africa. And when they run out of product, it's over, because the public isn't selling. The public is voraciously accumulating it. And if you look at what's happening on Comex right now, there's only 100 million ounces in the registered category. There were 3 times that taken off of Comex last year by the hedge fund or the sovereign wealth funds in the third reportable category, the others. From the top on down, the biggest money in the world is accumulating it. The retail sector is blowing up. It's a depleted asset. It's expanding in use cases. I mean, you could not ask for a better place to put your money. And I think it's the value proposition of a generation. As God is my witness, I believe that.
Well, thank you, Andy. And
hey,
Bill,
Chris, let me jump in on that.
Sure.
Let me jump in on that. First off, junk silver, when it comes to the silver market, is the canary in the coal mine. I mean, they have not produced any since 1964. If you go back to, 2013, when they had the silver smash, junk was the first one to supply was gone. So I think it's important to understand that, we are talking about supply chain, and in the last 3 to 4 weeks, when it comes to silver, I primarily suggest to customers to buy junk silver. In the last 4 weeks, we've had more days with junk being unavailable than days junk being available. I mean, it is really hard to find. And one other observation, and again, in about the same time frame, the last 3 or 4 weeks, the majority of my orders have been from new customers, new clients, and some old, contacting me and saying, what do you have for silver? What do you have for gold? I want to buy it today. I want the invoice today. I want the money out of my bank today. And what I'm smelling is people are crapping their pants. They want their money out of banks. And this is if you want to call it a behind the scenes bank run, if you will.
Yeah, and Bill, you may have answered the next question coming up, but I'll ask it specifically on behalf of Dumb Money Media, the king of money, aka Conrad, who I might add actually made us an incredible video trailer for SilverFest. Conrad, we're going to run that on our channel later tonight. And Bill, perhaps maybe him or one of his friends could even help you with that project you and I discussed, of somebody rounding up all the incredible interviews you've done over the years and just create the Bill Holter channel for you. So people can appreciate the insight that you've laid out. especially for me as a student of silver, and I think David Smith, you can in particular can appreciate this. I'll still listen to an interview from 10 years ago, and now you know all these things that have happened since then. It's always fun for me to listen to. But anyway, to Dumb Money Media's question, he asked, what will be the first silver product to run out of supply for us? Would you think it would be the junk silver, Bill, or the Eagles, or which product? And I'll add on, where might you think we might expect to see it? Would we see a sign on the Comex, or would it be Andy seeing something? What do you think there?
Oh, I think we're already seeing it. Junk silver that's obvious. The fact that the U.S. Mint went 3 or 4 months without sending anything out, and this was after the March squeeze on silver. The Mint came out and they said they couldn't source blanks due to the worldwide shortage. And of course, 2 or 3 days later, they came back and they said, "Oh, no, there's no shortage."
Yep.
And I mean, this goes back. If you go back to, I think it was 2012 or 13, and I believe it was either Jeff Christian or John Nadler, one of those two guys, were saying that the Mint could not source blanks, and they were trying to say that the blanks were actually the mold. And they didn't even understand that the blanks are, the raw coin before they're stamped.
That's what the Royal Mint right now is saying out of the UK, that they can't produce Britannias because they're out of blanks.
Yeah, and Bill, actually, you brought something up I think would be worth digging into a little further. These messages from the U.S. Mint, where it wasn't like they missed a decimal and an error like that. I mean, I remember we did videos about it because they said global silver shortage at a time where I think there's a lot of attention right after silver squeeze. We can also dig into that LBMA miscount, which would confirm what many of us discussed the first week of February when we said we didn't think SLV added all that metal. They tell us 2 months later they miscounted it. So we'll take both of these situations. But what do you think about that? The Mint even saying there was a shortage. Then you have Ed Moy do not one, but multiple interviews. And in fact, the first Kitco one, they say, "So Ed, do you think there's enough silver out there to back all the claims?" He says, "No." The Kitco woman interviewing was so shocked. She says, it's like, "What? Just to make sure. Ed, did I hear you correctly? Did you actually say that?" He says, "Yes, I think there is a gap." What did you think about that situation? Bill, you've seen their charades for longer than most people. What would you say there?
I would just say that they told the truth and had an oh shit moment and then tried to go back and cover their tracks. I mean, when you catch somebody bullshitting you, you catch them because they say something. They say something that is truthful oftentimes, and it blows up their story. So they got caught. I mean, they admitted the truth.
Bill, would you say it's similar to how Jeff Curry got caught lying on CNBC? In fact, quick note on that one. I think I saw it first, then Bix made a video the next day, but that was 9 days after his thing. And I just somehow happened to be, I don't think I was even watching it directly. I always have a ton of tabs open on my computer, and it was playing in the background. And I'm distracted answering emails, but I remember there was something he said in there where it was just like, I heard like just my mind caught it for a second. I'm like, what the fuck did this guy just say? I think they say these things because, like you said, I mean, if you run your mouth long enough, you let stuff slip. And I think they just assume everybody's too stupid to ever notice. It sounds like you feel like that's some version of what likely happened with the Mint as well.
Yeah, and I think what you're referring to with Jeff Curry was when he's talking about the exchange-traded funds get the metal into their possession, and then they sell contracts to hedge it. That's so bogus, so wrong. I mean, if that's what they're doing, then there's no exposure. I mean, the investor has no exposure.
You know, it reminds me of a bizarre criminal case that was concluded just a month or two ago, where this individual had been accused of killing his wife, and also a witness to that he was kind of involved with business-wise. And he went into the restroom during the court trial and forgot he had a microphone on. He says, "Well, they got you now. You killed them all." And he's talking to himself. It's a soliloquy. And sometimes these people forget who they're talking to, whether it's their partners in crime or the public, and they lose track of what trail they should be on.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that happens. And I've wondered over the years, why do these guys sometimes say things, or why is it that it seems like they need to reveal things? I think it's similar to what Ross Benham, I mean, probably in some portion of his mind, it was very clear. If he's on the side of the banks, it's very clear what they were afraid of, the situation that almost was very dangerous, almost got out of control, because the LBMA, before they told us how they lied about the numbers, they said we had fears we were going to run out of metal within a week if this pace had continued. So I think it's but to get people to con them into being the suckers at the rigged casino, you have to sell it. But if you can deconstruct what's actually being sold and the manipulative ways, David, I know you have experience as a copywriter, so you know the things that good copywriters use and in the wrong hands can be abused. And I think these are all examples of what we saw there. Would you agree with that?
I would, and going back just a little bit to your earlier question about how this breakout might occur when silver finally takes off. Andy has obviously a much better finger on the pulse of how these things evolve than I would, but I would suggest people are still willing to pay very high historic premiums for American silver eagles. And what I could see, one way that it could happen is suddenly these massive premiums, which are $9 to $12, suddenly turn out to be 25 or 30. And their people are shocked, and yet they're still buying it. And then that immediately bleeds out into the 1 ounce bullion rounds, and the 5 and the 10 ounces and the 100 ounces, and then the 1,000 ounces that are either co-owned or individually owned, and suddenly it's just all gone. And so, and people won't believe it. That for the first few days or the first few weeks, they'll think it's just an outlier, or it's going to go back, like that one $5 move we had on Veterans Day a couple of years ago overnight that lasted for 20 minutes. But it won't be. The next day it'll open up and it'll stay there, and then it'll go $5 more, and it'll be historic because, and I've said this for the last year or two in my talks, in my presentations, no one on the face of the earth alive today, including the members of this panel, knows what the value of silver is. We all know the price, but the value and the price are so distorted that it's hazard in a guess is all it is. It's in 3 figures. It could be well into 3 figures, but it's something we're going to find out relatively soon, I believe.
Yeah, and Bill, along those lines, I'd like all three of you to touch on this, but we'll start with you. The reason I bring these up, I think these are the specific signs of the evidence. All right, maybe February was 8 months or however many months it'll turn out before it breaks. But would you say it's fair that the LBMA miscounting metal that we all knew damn well that in February they didn't add it? They mentioned it 2 months later. You let me know. I'd invite them on the show if they want to address it. I don't know anybody with integrity who can get an answer out of these guys. I called SLV on February 5th asking about that. I was thinking, hey, maybe when they say the shares are added, they're working the order. She says to me, no, that means the metal's been added. I said, who adds it? She says, the custodian. I say, who's the custodian? Knowing damn well who the custodian is. She says, JP Morgan. I say, is that any conflict of interest that they were just charged with the RICO statute after a $1 billion fine and nobody's looked at the metal since then? She wasn't aware of that because she couldn't find the audit. She also didn't mention that they had changed the prospectuses on February 3rd, which I wonder if certain courts of law could have considered that a felony under the inappropriate or just past the line of knowledge. Then they send Jeff Curry out there. Then maybe these are the signs that the silver supply chain is already broken, and this is like hand to mouth at this point. Bill, what would you say on that?
Yeah, it's cover up. It's cover their tracks. To comment on what David just mentioned as far as price gaps, at some point you might as well call it unobtainium, because you're not going to be able to get it for any fiat. I've said for a while that there will come a point in time where metal will not trade for fiat, but gold will always be available for silver, and silver will always be available for gold. To this question, what you're seeing in silver, you're also seeing in other facets or aspects of life. We live in a world of nothing but lies. Everything's a lie. You turn on your TV, it doesn't matter whether you're watching CNN, MSNBC, Fox, any of them, you're getting bullshit. You're getting bullshit left and right. And we're at the point where conspiracy theories now only are theory for 6 months, because they're proven as fact within 6 months, time after time after time. And all of the lies that are out there, consistently, they're trying to cover tracks to cover up the lies. And the lies, of course, have to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's what you're seeing. That's what you're seeing in silver.
Andy?
Couldn't agree more. I think the misinformation is extraordinary, and we're all being led into the wrong pen. Most of the people are following conventional wisdom, while the biggest money in the world is doing the opposite of that. They are using the manipulation of the markets to run cover. And when you see, I keep going back to this one rogue trader, whoever he is, this whale on the Comex, who purchases 38,000 gold contracts all at once. Now it's up to 40,000 Comex December futures contracts. That's 4 million ounces of gold. That's $7.5 billion. That's a $330 or $40 million margin requirement. The media who paints this picture of people who own precious metals in a foolish light, like Peloton or whatever their name is, that technology company that bought 50 million ounces of gold, Palantir. This one position that this guy took is 130 times the size of that. Now, you're talking the biggest money in the world for quite some time has been using this narrative and the manipulation of information and price to reposition and to accumulate massive quantities. You talk about JP Morgan, who just paid a $920 million fine and was charged with RICO felonies and admitted to guilt, and yet they're still allowed to be the custodian of the world's largest silver trust, and at the same time, have accumulated north of 1 billion ounces of silver and 35 million ounces of gold. The biggest money in the world is using this to their advantage, and the only way you win is to understand that. And to Bill's point, there's a very fine line between conspiracy and reality these days. And like he said, these things keep getting proven true, and they're on every single level. They're not just on a financial level. They're far deeper than that. And we don't need to go down that rabbit hole, but certainly if you just take a step back and think for yourself and see what the big money is doing in this country, they're moving away from dollars. They're de-dollarizing. And, the media doesn't tell us anything. What the media should be telling us is the truth. Why is it that the media didn't tell us that on September 1st, when we left Afghanistan very unharmoniously, that Russia and Saudi Arabia signed a joint military cooperation agreement? And then the next day, Russia does it with Nigeria, the two biggest OPEC producing countries in the world. What is it that gives the dollar its reserve status? Protection of the Saudi kingdom. Well, they saw the way we protected our allies in Afghanistan, and I think there's no coincidence that this was announced the day we left Afghanistan with our tail between our legs. But why does the media not tell us that we are on the razor's edge of losing our petrodollar status, at least the singular petrodollar status? So When you talk about gold and silver as being wealth, I'll also remind people that because stocks and bonds have lost their inverse correlation, and that was always the place to go when you were afraid, you would transition to the bond market with safety. They're the only inversely correlated asset class any longer. And this is work that David Morgan told me about a long time ago, your partner, David, on the work that Ibbotson did out of Chicago, where they came out and said the only inversely correlated asset class to the U.S. stock market any longer, because interest rates have been suppressed, rendering stocks and bonds positively correlated now instead of inversely, is precious metals. So you have protection against a falling stock market and by extension, actually the falling dollar. And if Saudi Arabia one morning wakes up and says, you know what, we've decided to open up oil purchases in multiple currencies because our friends, the Russians, are now protecting us. And by the way, the day after that, those announcements were made, Zero Hedge runs an article that says Russia just announced hypersonic ICBMs outfitted on all their nuclear submarines and battleships. This is the technology that we don't have, that China and North Korea do, and Russia. These missiles that circle the globe at the speed of sound and then hit their target at the speed of a meteorite. This is their way of saying, don't fuck with us, like we did with Saddam Hussein and Gaddafi. And I think that's the biggest threat to this country right now, is we will wake up one morning and find we've lost the singular world reserve status because other countries are now going to be able to use their currency to buy oil. And then at that moment, the shit hits the fan in a massive magnitude. And all of the things that we are talking about takes on a whole new significance. You are not buying silver to get wealthy. You very well may get wealthy. There isn't a better investment on the planet to get wealthy. But be careful what you wish for by the same token, because when you see $300, $400, $500, $600 silver, ain't going to be fun to go out for a nice dinner, drive a nice car, wear a nice watch, or do anything that having all that wealth would give you the ability to do in years past. Don't mean to be so doom and gloomish, but I think that's where we are really right now.
Well,
Andy, reality.
Fortunately, silver has even solved that, because even when the dollar, it's not silver doing anything going here or there, left, right, up or down, but when the dollar's value is finally realized for as hyperinflated as it is, I think that will be a time where Silver Chris will be here getting people ready for silver industry spring break in Sayulita, Mexico, where life carries on just fine when you're in a jungle that doesn't even know about the Comex. Although fortunately, Andy, as Benny Smith quite astutely and generously points out, so much truth in these men. And yes, it is true that I asked Auditor Rob to pick a silver winner in the chat, because our sponsors have been so kind to me, and I can't carry all this silver everywhere. I mean, look at how heavy this 10-ounce double dragon is alone as compared to the 1-ouncer. So, Andy, I thank you for your sponsorship of the show. I have Rob picking some silvery winners in the chat, where we're going to take some more questions. Yara, maybe you can help Rob write down that name so we can get that. Let's pick. Okay, you're right. Let's pick 2 winners, because while Yara and Rob help out with that, Andy, we have a question from Edward Carolyn, mi amigo, who says, Andy, do you ship the Britannias to Canada?
We do. Canada is no problem. Canada is one of the few countries where shipping silver is not a problem. The only restriction is if it's under 395. So you can't send junk silver up there without paying a 13% VAT. We are also in very, very, very close to opening up our Canadian division in conjunction with one of the Royal Canadian Mint primary distributors. And the paperwork's been signed. The website's basically done. It should be done in the next few weeks. So we'll be able to actually take orders in Canadian dollars, which is a big deal, because the conversion from dollars to Canadian dollars to US dollars is probably 2 or 3 times the markup on buying silver. But to his point, yes, we do ship it, and that's not a problem at all. And pretty soon we'll be able to do it in Canadian dollars as well.
Well, I appreciate that. And Andy, just to show off a little bit, how cool is it that I've actually figured out this button that shows, can you see Richard Bajima says, I bet it takes a lot of silver to make hypersonic missiles. I remember you commented on that in this book called The Big Silver Short, how the Wall Street banks, with fellas like Jamie Dimon, Jeff Curry, and Jeff Christian, who doesn't say that he works for a bank, but we know where the moolah comes from. And you commented on how much silver the military is using. So I wanted to re-raise you my crafty technical knowledge that even allows us to see that Richard Benjamin just won himself a round of silver. Bill, I know, is mind blown and impressed with that, obviously. But let's see if we have any more questions in here. John Black asked, do you feel like the wholesalers are somewhat responsible for the high premiums right now?
No, I don't. And I put myself in the wholesaler's shoes. And, you know, if you're a wholesaler and you have demand coming from everywhere and you have no idea where your supply is going to come from next. But not only that, a wholesaler it's not a one-way street. The wholesaler is making the market on both ends. You want to sell me back junk silver. I was just on a podcast a few days ago, and I was telling the world that sell me back your junk silver. I'll pay you at the time. At the time, the premium was $4.50 over spot bid, and I was selling people Philharmonics at $3.75. Now, I was saying, look, if you own a bunch of junk silver, this is an anomaly. So it goes both ways. If you're a wholesaler and you got the whole world wanting to buy your product, you're making a market both ways. If I pay someone $4.50 over the price of silver on 20 bags, you know, that's 30,000 ounces or whatever, or no, 20,000 ounces at $4.50 a piece. That's $100,000 premium that I can't hedge. So there has to be a larger spread there when you're taking that risk on both sides of the market. But by the same token, I don't know what tomorrow brings. If the UK Mint doesn't get more blanks, I'm not going to get more Britannias. If the US Mint doesn't get their act together, I'm not going to get any more Silver Eagles. And it's going to be one after the other. And pretty soon there's nothing left. In an environment where there's all this risk to the dealer, you know, if I'm going to pay someone that kind of premium to buy it back, I have to have enough spread on the other end so that I don't get caught in a real big problem if things all of a sudden correct. And that's what people don't take into account. They're only looking at one side of it. And I'll use it this way. If you would have bought Silver Eagles from me in November of 2019, you would have paid $3.29 over spot. If you called me 4 months later in March, I would have paid you $11 over spot. It goes both ways. And so if you're going to get those high premiums when you sell, you have to give the wholesalers who are making the market in this and taking all this extraordinary risk and acting like a logistics company instead of a metals company, dealing with forward hedging, paying 3 months in advance, keeping everything moving. You have to give them the liberty of a little higher premium on the ask side too. Otherwise, the risk is not worth the return. And all of a sudden, be careful what you wish for. People say, fuck it, I'm out. And I'll just run away and sit on the beach and not do this anymore because the risk becomes, in this volatile market, far greater than the return. Remember, you can hedge the metal, you can't hedge the premium. And if it goes both ways, it has to go both ways. It's not just a one-way street.
Some good points in there, Andy, which I've been thinking about a lot because I understand people see $24 on the fraudulent Comex spot price, whatever that actually represents, since they have no silver apparently. And then they go and actually buy physical silver. It's $28, $29, $30 or more dollars. And I've asked you about the retail side before. You just talked about the wholesaler side, which shockingly enough leaves only one element that I can think of left, which is the investment banking fraudulent Comex side. Because, and Bill and David, I'd love to get your comment on this. The silver producers I've talked with, many of them they get about 95% of spot because they send it to a refiner. So they're not even getting spot. And now the thing is increasing, and if the retail dealers aren't getting an extra slice of the cake, and the wholesalers, that means the Comex spread is really what's widening. Bill, is that fair? Is that how you would see it, or any adjustments to that?
We have thought for several years, quite a few years now, it is possible, and I think you're going to see this. Comex ultimately is going to fail to deliver. But before they fail to deliver, it would not shock me to see the contract prices dropping. at the same time, physical, and you're kind of seeing that now with the spread, with the premiums going up. To get physical metal in your hand, it costs, call it $30. Yet the Comex price is $24. But you could see a $3, $4, $5 drop on Comex, and physical silver go to $35, $40. And the reason being, Comex contracts are contracts that ultimately will not and cannot perform. And I say this because there's, 200, 300 ounces represented for every 1 real ounce that exists. So I think you very well could see that spread widen much, much further, because the paper price it's not real.
And David, before you add any thoughts to that, I mean, given what we're discussing now, given the panel before how to bust the Comex, and given that there are a lot of investors watching this, I was told from someone that Eric Sprott watches the show. So people like that, once they're armed with this powerful knowledge that Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan don't reveal except when they've already been arrested and are being charged with the RICO statute, could conceivably tip this baby over the hill in a matter of minutes when you think about it.
Well, they really could, and I would like to suggest a little bit different approach that people might take in viewing this. So I'm sure there are people watching us that say, well, we've seen these attempts for a number of times to really make the price go where it's justified, and always the powers that be, or whatever you want to call them, they knock that in the head. So it's never going to happen. They're all powerful. But if you look at how a catastrophe develops, it's always, when you go back and look at it, whether it's the multiple 747 crash at Tenerife, which killed more people than any other crash in history of 2 jets on the runway, or whether you look at any number of other things that have become disasters, whether it's the Boeing fiasco with the 737 MAX. I mean, you can come up with dozens of things. There were a series of fairly inconsequential things that went wrong that in and of themselves didn't cause a catastrophe. It could have gone on indefinitely if it wasn't for one other thing that came in that was new, or one change in one of the elements that was already there, and suddenly that was all over. And that's what's going to happen. I don't know what that element will be, but it'll be a surprise that people will wonder about it for many, many years afterward. But something will happen, and suddenly it will be different than it's ever been before, and there will be no going back.
Yeah, I think you're quite
and
right.
they'll look at it and say that was obvious.
What's that, Bill?
I was just going to say, and people will look at it after the fact and say, "Oh, it was obvious that was going to happen."
Right.
It happens every time.
Yes, that one last snowflake that took it down, or when people are climbing up on the mountain, one thing that the climber forgets to fix the carabiner properly and then leaves it open. I mean, it's just something minor that would normally not matter, but now it's life and death.
I agree, David. And the only tragic part about it is that this panel is just about run out of time before we take a break. And I'm actually really excited what's coming up in 6 minutes at 2 p.m. Central. Rob Keen's silver superhero, who recently ended his corporate portion of his life so he can focus on saving the world more frequently. We're going to talk about how people can get involved in the silver industry if you're dealing with an employer who somehow thinks, in this culture we've grown up with, it's appropriate to financially threaten someone with the use of a dangerous needle. So if you're looking to get involved in the silver industry where there's a lot of opportunity, I have a lot of projects I'd love to move forward. Bill, Andy, David, we've all talked about how I've mapped out the Arcadia Silver Exchange, which I think could kick the Comex's ass, just like, throwing a touchdown to Andy Schectman past the corner, Jeff Curry, and you could beat that sucker all day long. But before we wrap that up, Andy, I would like to thank you and Miles Franklin again for being a proud sponsor of the show. I know you're giving away silver ounces like hotcakes. And is there any chance you have not just a regular special, but something super hot that people could burn their fingers on? I know the coins are a bit over, but you said there was a great rate on those kilo bars. Now, keep in mind, you can't make it that hot that Bill Holter's cell phone is ringing off the hook, all night long. He's missing dinner. But what can you give us at Andy at Miles Franklin so that people who want to actually pick up some silver before the price reset can get a great deal?
I have Val, of course, and then the honor is mine, Chris, and you're doing a great job here. It's really a pleasure to be here with people in the industry who I consider to be smart and friends and honest and honorable guys, and that's the most important thing in my world is integrity and honesty. And I don't know, it's just a pleasure to be here. As far as specials, yeah, we have 10 ounce and kilo bars. We have kilo Valcambi silver bars at $2.49 over. We have Wall Street silver 10 ounce bars at $3.15 over. And then as coins go, Silver Philharmonics 2021, $3.75 over. But all you need to do is mention Arcadia Economics in the subject line, and I will personally make sure that on any silver product that you buy, you'll get the best price in the United States. So the honor and pleasure is certainly mine.
Excuse me. Andy, quick question before we get some last final thoughts. I know the answer to this, but Maxwell Silverhammer, hot darn what a sexy last name that is. Andy, will you trade some silver for gold? Are you still offering the swaps?
Yes, we will. We will give you a full value on whatever it is that you're trading in. Like American Eagles right now are 3% bid price over the price of gold, and we'll make no commission on the buyback. We can even assist people in sending it back. If they're larger amounts, we can have UPS come and pick it up. We can tell you how to send it back by registered mail. Upon receipt, we will check it in and turn around and immediately apply all the proceeds to whatever silver that your people are looking for. I think it's a great idea right now. This is maybe the last train out when you see inequity between gold and silver 11 times what its geological footprint is right now. I don't know if it gets any better. So yes, we do that, and it's something that I strongly suggest.
Well, I appreciate that. And it looks like Jenny Alicia, who has a son who stacks like he's making his own silver hammer, she thanks you as well, Andy. So, and Andy, I don't know where my share screen button disappeared to, but can you let folks know how they can reach you if they would like to place an order, if there's information they want or products they're looking for?
All we need to do, you can send an email to info@Miles Franklin or Arcadia@Miles Franklin, either one, a direct question to me, Andy@Miles Franklin, and just put Arcadia Economics in the subject line, and we will send information, a relevant and current up-to-date price sheet, and make ourselves available, whether it's me or one of the brokers that I have personally trained. We'll make ourselves available. And certainly you can also reach out to my good friend Bill Holter, who is one of the most interesting people you'll ever talk to, and he can help you with silver as well.
Yeah, just put Stack Like Jack in the subject headline, and Bill Holter, who could he could wave his silver hammer and make the LBMA quake in their boots. Bill, I told the story earlier today when we were hanging out in Texas couple of months ago, and that guy was driving too slow in front of you, and I was worried you were going to shoot him. So I know the LBMA and the Jeffy brothers want no part on the other end of that. Bill, any final thoughts from the legend before we wrap this baby up?
I would just advise time is short. Do the best you can to prepare in every facet of your life.
Makes sense to me. And fortunately, any of you gentlemen have a couple minutes to stick around in the Arcadia Barter Post booth where people can ask questions, get your virtual autograph. Maybe if they have some silver they want to trade and swap, I'd like to start increasing the liquidity. So, for example, I have, this cool coin that, I don't remember what exactly I paid, but it's beautiful. And I think that would be a great contribution to the silver industry, that rather than people feel like they're getting bent over when they want to sell something back, maybe there's another guy in the audience, or you have another customer that we can increase liquidity. These are the kind of things that tighten the spreads, replace the Comex, send them back to Epstein Island for good without a longer than a 3-hour tour, maybe a 3-year tour at least for all these guys. again, just appreciate all that you guys do, and thank you for being here. Coming up next on the main stage in just about 5 minutes, how to get involved in the silver industry, or for some of our mining companies out there who are going to see a lot more demand as the price busts through Ross Benham's tamp down levels, how to hire good people as well, because we have a lot of talented people, a lot of companies that are looking for promotion. We have great video makers out there, and whether it's something formal, just getting people together and really increasing the liquidity, not just financially, but in skill and the labor market, which would take down the U.S. government, Joe Biden package quite quickly, in my opinion. And that is coming up in a few minutes. So, again, I thank you all for being here. And Yara, we're going to wrap this one up now, and we will see you back on the main stage in just about 5 minutes.